I'm Cordell Wright. For those who love riding motorcycles, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is almost a holiday, and it's only 19 days away. With excitement growing, there's also a recent trend causing concern for motorcyclists. Parker Brown has the details in our top story tonight at 10.
Within the last month, we've seen an increase in the number of motorcycle-related accidents, some of them fatal. Within the summer months, when many people are traveling, motorcycle safety is of high importance.
High speeds and heavy traffic can be a recipe for accidents for any form of transportation.
They happen in vehicles, they happen in trucks, they happen on motorcycles. Every form of transportation has some element of danger. I think motorcycles are front and center because of the fact that they look more exposed, right? And there's no question that they are, but that's part of what makes them really exciting to ride.
During the summer, the State Highway Patrol sees many accidents as the volume of vehicles on the road increases. They recommend increased awareness on highways and giving bikers space.
It's nice weather, everybody's wanting to be out enjoying this weather, so there's just going to be a higher flow of traffic, so just everybody needs to pay attention.
There are plenty of things that a motorcyclist can do to limit the chances of an accident or at least limit injuries, including watching your speed.
If possible, ride in bigger groups, so that way the general public, it's more visible to see you out there. Riding in bigger groups is just, you get more bikes in there and it's easier to see.
You can also take precautions before hitting the road. Harley-Davidson's riding courses or state-run courses are recommended by officials, as well as protective gear like a helmet, even if it isn't required by the state.
You just really need to play your odds. You need to make sure you've got every angle covered with education, being aware, making sure you're not impaired in any way whatsoever when you're riding, make sure you got good safety gear, and then, like my dad used to say, drive everybody's car. Don't assume somebody's going to stop.
Each of these steps might seem like something small, but they could play a huge part in protecting yourself from an accident or saving your life. In Sioux Falls, Parker Brown, Dakota News Now.